Okay, so the next thing we're going to be doing is the layout test. Now, having just been introduced to it, what you're going to need to do is use the text that I've given you. You're going to leave the font alone, and you're going to try and rearrange this to make it actually fit this box and look aesthetically pleasing. Now, over here you'll see that the background is black, and that's been done for you, and you have a text layer. Now, this text layer has gone slightly within the square, and that is because we should never have the text right up against the edge of an area. Now, we're practicing with squares because your eventual net is made up of four squares that you're going to have to apply the design to. Now, to begin with, I'm just going to show you how you can edit a few different things. So, first of all, we're going to double click on the T in the layer. When I double click on that, what it now does is allow me to go into the text box and change all sorts. I can change spellings, but I don't need to. One thing I will do though is add a full stop to the end. Now, I need to think about what I want as the highlight of this. Now, to start with, it says the student. Now, it is important to read through this to understand what you want to highlight and what you want to do with it. So I'm going to try for a nice title. So I'm going to hit enter just here, and I'm going to send the rest of the text to a new line. The student, I think, can perhaps be bigger. I'm going to highlight the student, and I'm then going to go up here to the size, and I'm going to increase it to 24. Now that has unfortunately been too big. So I'm now going to put 22, still too big, 21, still too big, 20, there we go. So I'm going to have that size 20. Now I wanted it as big as it could go, so it could fit more or less from the top left to the top right, but it's still not quite there. And there's still things I can do to change that. Next thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to go up to Window and go to Paragraph. Now this is great. First thing I want to do is check that this hyphenate box hasn't been ticked. If I tick that, what will happen is if it tries to go to a new line for a word, you'll get a little hyphen and it'll carry on with the word on the next line. So I'm just going to make sure that's unticked. Next up, I'm going to go over to character. Here you can see all sorts of options. I'm going to highlight the student. Now, here you can see I have the size, and I've already set that to 20. Here I have the height between this line and the line underneath. Over here I have the height of the text and the width of the text. And just here I have the spacing between the letters, or the tracking as it's called. Okay, so I'm going to change the tracking and I'm going to increase it just a bit. And as you can see, the text moved then. I'm going to do it just a little bit more. And I'm then going to go over to paragraph, and I'm going to click on the square one at the end. Now, as you can see, that just moved that word over for me. And that now looks quite good as a title. It's now nice and clear, and it stretches the correct distance. Now, I want to create a bit of space between the title and the text underneath. So what I can do is I can click down here and just press enter. I've now moved that nicely down. Now here comes the tricky bit, because I've got a lot more here, and I need to think about the best way of doing it. I could try just highlighting this and trying to hit the square. But you can see I now have all sorts of big spaces. Now, even though it has made it into a nice neat block, it doesn't read well because of all these large spaces. So I'm going to have to really think about how I do this. So you're going to have to play with not only the spacing between them, but you may also want to try changing the size. So you're going to have to try to figure out how you do this. Now, I've got a couple of good lines there. That has the ability to arrange text and images into blocks according to, so that bit has worked quite well. And then here I have strength and importance. Now, strength and importance I think can perhaps be quite an area to emphasize. So I'm just going to put some words onto different lines and see how that works. I'm going to highlight those words and I'm going to now come over to paragraph and centralize them. Now you can see there it did just centralize the ones above it as well. So I'm going to press enter. I'm going to then highlight the bits on top and then square them out. So I've got those bits there, and I could then perhaps play with certain words where I'm going to shrink the size. So this I could drop down to size 6. This I could then increase to perhaps 18, and I could perhaps do the same with importance. And I can then keep going until I'm happy. Okay, so you have lots of things you can play with. Don't just change the size. Have a look at what this does. Have a play with it. Perhaps changing the height of the text and the width. Perhaps coming across the paragraph and deciding whether it's going to be centralized or whether you want to fit it to a block, or even if you want it over to the left. That's totally up to you. But remembering this is a square area that we really want to do some good changes to. Now once you've finished, and one I've made earlier which I'm just going to go to now, once you've finished you're going to need to screenshot this into your PowerPoint. So you're going to need to hold down the FN key, which is the second in from the bottom left next to Control, and you're going to need to press the end button, which is 3 in from the top right. Once you've done that, you can then go to your PowerPoint and you're going to need to find the right slide. Now the slide you need is going to be slide 8, and you're going to need to press Ctrl V to paste it in, and then you need to double click, go to crop, drag in from the edges, and then once you've cropped it how you want it, then just click off, and there we go. I can then make that a little bit bigger, and now I have a nice little section to do with layout. Obviously save it once you've done that.